There are many schools of psychoanalysis and approaches that help to read the human psyche with multiple attitudes, fields, and knowledge. And if psychology has developed greatly with the school of psychoanalysis and its great leaders such as Freud, Adler, Carl Jung, and others, the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl has created a new school and an unprecedented approach in psychotherapy, which is called Logotherapy, and he wrote a book in the late 50s telling the story of his imprisonment in bestial concentration camps by the Nazis, explaining his suffering and pain. Logotherapy means that a person is a moral being who cannot live without a target, goal, or purpose, because his natural and psychological existence is determined by the meaning that he decides for his life, which helps him in facing the struggles of life. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. In this book, Viktor Frankl explains clearly his experience in one of the largest prisons in the history of humanity, and tells us the experiences and sufferings of millions of prisoners from time to time. This story is told by one of the surviving inmates, and it is not intended only to convey the feelings of terror and fear experienced by the prisoners, but rather goes much deeper to focus on the details and methods of torture. In order to finally try to answer the question, how did the daily life in the concentration camp affect the mind of the prisoner? All the details and the torments that the prisoner suffers in order to maintain his psychological and physical balance do not matter. Rather, the most important of all is that every man was controlled by one thought only: to keep himself alive for the family waiting for him at home, and to save his friends. Frankl was not employed as a psychiatrist, or even as a doctor, except for the last few weeks. However, what distinguishes life in concentration camps, according to him, 3 phases of the inmate's mental reactions to camp life: the period following his admission, the period when he is well entrenched in camp routine, and the period following his release and liberation. Bit to remember, the aim of the story is not to convey the feelings of terror and fear experienced by the prisoners, but rather to reveal the terrible psychological side of these torture techniques. The life of a prisoner is totally different. Frankl wanted to reveal this terrible psychological aspect through analytical techniques aimed at identifying all the details of this dark life. That is why he told us specifically about the delusion of reprieve, which means that the condemned man, immediately before his execution, gets the illusion that he might be reprieved at the very last minute. But the most dangerous thing about these delusions of the prisoners is that they are shattered one by one, and replaced by a terrible feeling that makes them keep laughing and cracking jokes, because they are certain that they have nothing to lose except their so ridiculously naked life. There is also the curiosity about their fate that controls the prisoner as a leading reaction to certain strange circumstances, followed by the amazement that expresses their curiosity. The most dangerous thought that the prisoner think of is suicide. It is an idea that was entertained by nearly everyone. It was born of the hopelessness of the situation, the constant danger of death looming over them daily and hourly, and the closeness of the deaths suffered by many of the others. Bit to remember, the prisoner's psyche has a mixed flow of delusions, curiosity, amazement, and the desire to die. What does logotherapy mean? It is simply a therapy that focuses on the future, that is to say, on the meanings to be fulfilled by the patient in his future. And this is related to every human by himself, and this is proven by experience and reality. The neurotic person that has typical self-centeredness is broken up instead of being continually fostered and reinforced. Yet in logotherapy, the natural patient is actually confronted with and reoriented toward the meaning of his life, that hidden power that can overcome all obstacles. Logotherapy means to help the patients find the meaning in their life, and that nothing can compensate this goal, no matter what the justifications for our psychological existence are, because we are simply fragile beings who cannot resist away from this meaning. And most of us suffer from what's called the existential vacuum, which is a widespread phenomenon in our contemporary world. The existential vacuum manifests itself mainly in a state of boredom. Logotherapy tries to make the patient fully aware of his obligations and responsibilities in order to bear the burdens of this human existence through love, and also through belief in the unavoidability of suffering. In accepting this challenge to suffer bravely, life has a meaning up to the last moment. Bit to remember, logotherapy helps the patient to find a meaning that helps him in accepting his life. Human existence is characterized by two basic phenomena. The first is the human ability to self-liberate. As for the second, it is represented in the ability of self-transcendence. We have to focus on self-transcendence, which was neglected by a group of psychological theories that focused on the fact that man mainly cares about the principle of restoring inner equilibrium and seeks to restore it, and that in order to achieve this strategic goal, he seeks with all his strength to reduce tensions. But the most important thing in that is that self-realization is not the ultimate goal for a person, not even his first goal, because if self-realization becomes an end in itself, then it will contradict with the characteristic of self-transcendence. And we can make sure of this by the fact that self-realization is a consequence or a result of finding the meaning, because a person only realizes himself when he finds a meaning in his world. However, boredom is prevalent in today's world, as well as the feeling of existential vacuum and meaninglessness. Bit to remember, self-transcendence seeks to motivate human beings to search for the meaning of their life.